As we go down on Section 1 is the opening of the meeting, call to order. Section 2 will be approval of the agenda. 2.1, changes to agenda and approval of agenda. Section 3, we have a recognition on Monday night. 3.1 will be proclamation of National Education Support Professionals Day. Section 4, visitors, we have none. Section 5, administrative personnel appointments. 5.1, appointment of specialist, digital media and communications, public information officer, digital media and communications department. Section 6 is public comment. 6.1, members of the public desiring to address the school board, Form MIS 5241, public input and/or discussion of agenda items. And this is the 4-minute version of public comment. So we'll move down to Section 7, committee and staff reports. 7.1, we have in-county travel paid for October 2022. 7.2, out-of-county travel paid for October 2022. 7.3, quarterly progress report of the Sales Tax Citizens Oversight Committee, presented by Jason Belcher, committee chairman, and he will be here Monday night to present that. So we're at now Section 8, consent agenda, and of course, school board members, stop me at any time on any item, and we do have some staff that's here today. So 8.1 will be the approval of the consent agenda. 8.2, approval of the minutes of the workshop meeting of October 20th, 2022, minutes of the regular meeting of October 24th in 2022, October 24th, 2022. 8.3, appropriation of District 2 school board member capital outlay funds to Silver Sand School for 2 classroom mag locks in the amount of $2,347.38, presented by Ms. Marty Gardner. 8.4, budget amendment number 1, fiscal year 2022 through 2023, presented by Julie Perry, our chief financial officer. 8.5, monthly financial statement for September 2022. 8.6, invoices to be approved for payment. 8.7, school donations. 8.8, internal funds accounting manual revised. 8.9, open a district bank account, open a district Bank of America account for district partial self-insured health insurance, and authorize United Healthcare to open a benefits bank account at Bank of America on behalf of the district. 8.10, renewal of tag-on bid RFP 151702, dispensing system for general cleaning supplies. 8.11, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000, Playmore recreational products and services. 8.12, amendment to service agreement number 23-40, Jason J. Peterson. 8.13, amendment to service agreement number 23-39, Elizabeth Morgan. 8.14, service agreement number 23-95, Blake Dickinson. And 8.15 is the annual agreement for charter bus services between the school board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Emerald Coast Luxury Transportation, LLC. 8.16, 2022 through 2023 Uniform Statewide Assessment Calendar. 8.17, surplus and donate 1 school bus to Destin High School and 1 school bus to Okaloosa Academy. 8.18, agreement for benefits administration services with Web Benefits Design. 8.19, agreement to grant Okaloosa Gas District a 15-foot wide utility easement at Choctawhatchee High School. 8.20, agreement to grant Okaloosa Gas District a 15-foot wide utility easement at Pryor Middle School. 8.21, agreement to grant Florida Power and Light Company a 10-foot wide utility easement at Antioch Elementary School. 8.22, agreement to grant Florida Power and Light Company a 10-foot wide utility easement at Crestview High School for the new classroom addition. 8.23, agreement to grant Florida Power and Light Company a 10-foot wide utility easement at Fort Walton Beach High School. 8.24, agreement to grant Florida Power and Light Company a 10-foot wide utility easement at Crestview High School for the new multi-purpose building. 8.25, underground distribution facilities installation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Florida Power and Light Company at Crestview High School for the new multipurpose room. 8.26, underground distribution facilities installation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Florida Power and Light Company at Crestview High School for the new classroom addition. 8.27, underground distribution facilities installation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Florida Power and Light Company at Fort Walton Beach High School. 8.28, second amendment to non-exclusive student affiliation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Crestview High School, and Crestview High School Hospital Corporation doing business as North Okaloosa Medical Center. 8.29, affiliation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Crestview Rehabilitation Center. 8.30, course adoption for Choctawhatchee High School for the 2022 through 2023 school year. 8.31, course adoption for exceptional student education for the 2022 through 2023 school year. 8.32, course adoptions for Fort Walton Beach High School for the 2022 through 2023 school year. And finally, 8.33, course adoption for Crestview High School for the 2022 through 2023 school year. And now we'll move to Section 9, and this is the Superintendent's Human Resource Recommendations. 9.1, employees on administrative leave. 9.2, deferred retirement option program drop. 9.3 is employment separations. 9.4, personnel recommendations. 9.5, employee transfers. 9.6, employee termination. 9.7, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination. 9.8, leave without pay. Section 10 is discussion agenda, and we have no items at this time that have been moved. Section 11 is construction program owners representatives business. 11.1, Dr. Kelly, I'll turn it over to you.
And we have a meeting Monday morning, and I'll be able to present to you that report that evening.
Awesome, thank you. So now we'll move to item 11.2, and this is authorization for professional services from Faithful and Gold for price validation for program number 6, task order number 29, CTE renovations at Crestview High School and Titan Commercial Building. 11.3 is program number 6, task order number 30, time and materials task order, construction of new electrical services at Lewis School and Crestview High School with upgrades at Niceville High School. Section 12 is information technology seat management contract. We have no business under there. And 13 is attorney's business. Mr. McInnes?
No report this morning.
Thank you, sir. And now we'll move to section 14, superintendent's business. 14.1, out-of-state student trip request. And Mr. Chambers, I'll turn it over to you for 14.2.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. School Board, we have a few announcements, and then we'll have a presentation by Mr. Horton. I do want to start off by saying we all know that tomorrow is a day off, but it's a day of honoring our veterans. You know, many of us up here grew up in military families. We had our fathers were in the military. I'll just say for myself, you know, my father was in the Air Force for over 33 years, and then Fort Walton Beach High School ROTC instructor. So it's a day that we're off, but it's a day where we're honoring our veterans. And I think that's something that we all take very seriously. And as you know, across our school district today, many of our schools are honoring our veterans with different presentations. So I just really appreciate our schools doing that. As you know, we are in a very strong military community, and it's something that we take pride in. So just wanted to mention that. Also mention to our school board and those who may be viewing, as you know, our parent survey is up and going, and we just really encourage our parents to go to our websites. Our schools are also pushing that out to our parents as well. And our goal is to get good feedback, you know, things that we can do better, things that are going well. But anytime that we can get good feedback, I think that makes us a better school district. And along those lines, I started meetings that we'll be having with parents across the school district. We started our first one yesterday with our elementary parents in the Niceville, Destin area. But we will be meeting with parents in the Fort Walton Beach area. We'll be meeting with parents in the Crestview area, Baker, Laurel Hill. But we want to really do two things. One, share information with our parents on topics such as career and technical education, school safety, the half-cent sales tax update, mental health, and more. But then the other piece, which is the most important part, is getting input and questions from parents. Yesterday was interesting, and I anticipated some questions that would come, but some I did not. One of the questions dealt with health techs, so they wanted to know a little bit more about health techs versus LPNs versus RNs, so we had a good discussion there. They also brought up how half-cent sales tax dollars are being spent. And the board may remember that, for example, some of our elementary schools, the amount of money is less than maybe a middle school or a high school. But that was purposeful in that we're also looking at new school construction. So if we build a new school in an area, it's going to help with capacity over time when the new school is built. So we purposely didn't add wings on to some of our elementary schools because we knew we were building a new school, but having that conversation was good. Also, they brought up substitutes, bus driver shortage, and the new Focus app in terms of the implementation. So we had some really good discussions. Some of the parents, we started at 9 o'clock, and some stayed till 12. So we had a great conversation. I really appreciated the parents who were there. We had 20-plus parents in attendance, so this room with the tables that we had was full. And next month we'll have another meeting, and each month until we hit each and every part of the county, we'll be having a meeting to be able to have that conversation and get that input. So I really appreciated that. A little student services update. Do want to say to this board, one of the things that we're taking very seriously in our county is vaping. And students are utilizing vape pens, some of it with the nicotine and some of it that has THC in these vape pens. And for me, and I know for the school board as well, that's something that is a concern to us and something that we need to be active on. So one of the things that we're doing as a school district is we're about to start a vape campaign where we'll be getting information out to our schools, especially at the middle school and the high school level, to share some of the ill effects of vaping, the consequences of vaping, and the school board policies as it pertains to vaping, whether it be nicotine or the THC. The other step that we'll be taking is we're looking at right now vape detection devices that would go in bathrooms. And these vape detection devices that we would want to utilize as a deterrent, so students know that those are in the bathrooms and they understand that we're serious about not having these vape pens in schools. The ultimate goal of this is our students aren't utilizing vape pens. We want our students making healthy choices. We don't want our students getting in trouble. We want them in school making good decisions. So this is something that we'll be looking at. Before we put them in our bathrooms, we'll make sure that students understand that these are going to be there, and we'll be sending a letter home to parents so they understand that this isn't about trying to catch kids. This is about helping kids make good, healthy decisions and choices.
Question, can those be placed on a bus?
That's what I was
Middle
thinking.
school, high school? I mean, just being what we just had to do earlier?
No, I understand, and
That's a possibility?
I think that could be a good suggestion and something that we can investigate and look into, see whether or not we'd be able to do something like that. Okay? Also, this past Tuesday at the Hilton Garden Inn, we have a program that that the board has graciously allowed us to do, and it's Project Search. And we have 6 students of some of our students with disabilities who at the age of 22, they have the ability to work at the Hilton Garden Inn. And these students have been working 5 days a week for 5 hours in different areas of food services and maintenance, helping in the rooms in terms of cleaning. So they all graduated from this program, and now they're going to have the ability to work at the Hilton Garden Inn. So just a great job with Silver Sands, with OTC, our ESE department. So it was the first time that these students took part in that. So that was excellent. Coming up next week, and I'm not going to share too much of this because I think one of our board members might share a little bit about this as well. Well, I hope so. But I will say Hope Squad is something that we're still really pushing strong for with our mental wellness programs. And we have a visitor that's going to be coming next week, but I think that'll be discussed in a little bit. We are monitoring the hurricane. Mr. Horton's working with each of the schools of those who could be traveling to our east, so he's already been on that, and so I think we'll be in good shape. We do still have the ability for some of our schools to go east, but they have to leave at the specific time, Friday at the earliest, but Mr. Horton is in contact with Patrick Maddox just to make sure that safe travels can occur. And then the last thing I'll say before Mr. Horton comes up is last week we had Educate the Educator +1. And that's an outstanding event that we've been doing for a number of years, and it's a partnership with CareerSource, a partnership with One Okaloosa EDC. But our students and teachers get the ability to go out into businesses and see the types of opportunities that are there that they can then bring back to the school and share those nice opportunities. BitWizards, Beast Code, and HCA Florida Destin Hospital all hosted our teachers and administrators and students. It was a fantastic event and something that we're really proud of. So with that being said, if Mr. Horton would come forward, as you know, over the last 2 or 3 years, as it pertains to construction, as it pertains to our capital budget, as it pertains to the half-cent sales tax, a lot has occurred in our schools. And so Mr. Horton's going to share with us what we've done already to date, where we currently are and where we're going, as well as new school construction.
Thank you very much. And I want to put a plug in for BitWizards and even Beast Code because the founders of BitWizards went through Meigs Junior High at Choctawhatchee High School, so they are local and they are really interested in supporting the education in Okaloosa County, so they're great supporters of us. So thank them, and I got to spend the day with them as well, so it was really a good day. What I want to do with you is bring some information to you that's probably something that you're aware of, but we realize we kind of live and talk construction projects and capital projects all the time. But for the public and those people that are out there that may not hear, it was refreshing to talk to the group of parents earlier this week about different projects and things. And so I think it's important to regularly come and give updates on where we are. So if I'll do that, and please stop me at any time, ask a question, because it's hard to, as I keep rolling through, if you've got something, just stop me and we'll address whatever we need to. This is not going to be an all-inclusive piece, but I think it will give you the highlights of where we are. So the first thing I want to do is just kind of give a refresher for folks on our capital project timeline. As you know, all school districts in Florida are required to have a 5-year capital outlay plan. That's on our website under the finance section that Julie Perry hosts for us. But there's a process that goes into creating that. And so it happens every year, even though it's a 5-year plan. And the first thing that we do is we start by looking at developing enrollment projections. And so we're in that time frame of the school year where how many kids you have at a school and where those students attend has an impact on what capital needs that you have. So we'll be doing our projections for the upcoming school year, 23-24, right after we come back from December. And Wendy will start working, Ms. Meserve will start working on those things this fall. In the meantime, I know we're anxious to see how current enrollment played out and what our FTE looks like. So she's in that process right now, and there's some amendment windows. So probably the next board meeting, I'll be able to give you some information about how close we were to the target for our FTE projections, okay? Once we do that, we have to examine and develop solutions for capacity issues. So that's just one facet of capital construction. So as you've been well aware of in the past, we have schools that are at capacity. We have some that are full but not necessarily growing right now. But we have to take a look at, as we plan a construction and capital budget for the following school year for 5 years, where that capacity is and what might be a best way to address it. Mr. Chambers mentioned about the offset of building an 8 or 12 classroom wing at 4 different schools or constructing a new school. And it does make sense in our area where we've got growth to do the new school construction, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. Prioritizing capital projects new and existing. I think we all remember when we went back through the sales tax referendum piece, and the project list for our schools grew to almost $500 million and outstripped the money that was coming in from the sales tax revenue. But So there always is a prioritization. So we'll do things such as working with Jacobs Titan and looking at our roofing systems across the school district and prioritizing those. So if we can put $7 million, $8 million in a given capital budget cycle to roofing, then we prioritize those based on a number of issues, and we'll talk about those. HVAC is the same way. So we're no longer trying to just repair systems that are beyond end of life. We are replacing. And I just called and checked up on something today, and so we're still victims to supply timelines in some sense. I was out at Bob Sykes earlier this fall and looking at some classroom situations where the air conditioning was working but kind of limping along. The media center at Bob Sykes needs a new system, and the board has approved that to happen. You've probably forgotten it's been so long, but there's a 22-week timeline on getting those systems in for the media center, for example. So they're able to do some of them quickly, but some of them it still takes a while to do. So we measure progress sometimes in months on some of these particular issues. So then we look at developing the budget to address this. So that's when we get into the springtime. We start to get an understanding from Julie and Ms. Perry in finance and what's projected to be potential capital budget funding for the upcoming school year. So I'll show you in a slide later on how we've been blessed recently due to rising property values, not rising tax rates, but property values increasing, that has supported the capital budget for the school district. And then, of course, in the summertime, we have public input and board workshops where we look at this information and folks can take a look at it and provide input on it. And then that kind of leads us back to the end of a summer period where we have a 5-year capital budget. And so I always say the plan is the plan, but it could be that year 2 of the plan or year 3 of the plan needs to be adjusted based on what's happened in a given circumstance. So that's just an overview of capital project timeline from my sense. And involved in that is Dr. Smith, Mr. Meyer, our maintenance foreman, our principals, our school principals, Jacobs Titan, and then folks like Train, who we work with to provide air quality solutions and heating and cooling. So we meet to determine the priority needs and what we need to address now. And so that's kind of that piece. It's one slide, but I'll go faster, I promise. So going back in that enrollment projections, just to expand a little bit, we always analyze historical enrollment. We do look at housing developments. We've got a lot of that going on in Crestview right now. We look at workforce and military trends, so we regularly communicate with them about when they have large numbers of PCSing families coming in and where that might be. And then we look at population models. So the FTE model itself, the funding model for our schools based on student enrollment, comes from the state, and they've got a whole department of people that work on that to provide us models with that. So that's kind of enrollment projections. Solutions for capacity issues. So many of you have been in schools. Does a school have room to support expected enrollment? Class size consideration. So in some schools, there are different classrooms that are used for different things. And if the enrollment rises, then maybe there can be a repurposing of those rooms. Relocating programs. Sometimes when enrollment is high in a certain area and they run out of space, that might mean there's a program that moves to a different location. That happens with a lot of planning and forethought and notice to parents. There were some situations a few years ago where we moved to ESE units and we made sure to communicate with families in that. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen in the upcoming year, but that's just something that's part of that process. And then adding capacity, whether it be temporary or permanent. We have not gone out and purchased portables in the last handful of years. I think we've moved some around, obviously to get ready for construction that's going on, but temporary or permanent capacity. So those are things that we'd look at. Capital projects. So obviously safety is a big piece for the funding priorities, and we'll talk about that a little bit down the road. Environmental, and I classify roof, HVAC, classroom environment, site infrastructure in terms of the prioritizing of capital projects. Again, we talked about capacity. So does something new need to be done in a location? And then, as I mentioned earlier, input from our total program management team, Jacobs Titan, our project partners, maintenance work order history, all those things go into helping us prioritize our capital projects. The budget development, as we know in here, comes from primarily 2 sources for capital programs. It's the 1.5 mil capital outlay, and in that I throw in another allocation, it's the capital outlay and debt service piece, and that's all on our budget website. And then the sales service tax revenue. So today I won't kind of split that up into two separate pots. They are absolutely two pots of money in terms of the things that we're doing with them. But as a capital presentation, I'm kind of lumping them all in together. Public input, and again, that workshop is where we talk about scope of work for the year and beyond. And then you, as board members, know that's when the task orders start to come through. That's when the board items come through for things. And as an example, there was a $2.6 million air conditioning board item that came back in August, I believe, that was impacting 5 or 6 schools. And so again, we sometimes judge construction and capital in months. And so that's in the course of a year, then that's when those projects get done, because it takes so long to get those systems developed. And then again, the 5-year capital outlay budget derives construction and renovation projects, and it's adjusted as needed based on changing conditions. All right? Comments, questions yet? Now to the fun stuff. Okay. Highlights of the program, again, just to review those things: safety, so you can see single points of entry, perimeter security, cameras, communications, fire alarms, significant investment in fire alarm system in schools this year, intercoms, and internal access control that we'll speak about earlier as a phase 2 of security. Did I call that one up?
Yep.
Was that me?
You got Siri talking to you.
Yeah, right, she's telling me something. Environment, site infrastructure, whether it be paving projects, sewer, bathroom renovations, classroom additions, school buses, cafeterias, multi-purpose facilities, construction. So these are things that we're going to briefly talk about in the following slides. Here's a picture. Got a couple pictures here for you. This is Silver Sands Classroom Edition that you may have seen some social media on. That's making great progress. I think they're going to have a laundry room in there too to work, and it's going to be a really nice setup for replacing some portables that were there. I think there's another project on the agenda tonight that I believe is sales tax funded, but it's a playground project, significant playground project at that school. So they're getting a lot of good work being done at that school. And again, Ms. Wheat there is extremely patient and understands, but every time I go there, we go out and take a look and see how high the wall is. So it's higher than that right now, I'll tell you that. This is an example of the multi-purpose facility. So if you haven't been down to Fort Walton Beach High School, that it's really taking shape. And once they start going vertical, it happens quickly. So Crestview slab has been poured, so they're going to be next up. Baker's got their area leveled and graded, and so the slab is coming there. Choctaw and Niceville will not be far behind, so that's very exciting. The school communities expressed a great desire and need for space for all that they do and all the activities that the students are involved in. So I think these will serve those communities well. I could even see a time where middle school might get up with the school principal at the high school and say, hey, can we come over and use this facility a little bit? Because I think it's something for the entire community. So just a quick reminder to folks, the half-cent sales tax capital program is 18 months underway. January of 2021 was the first month. Now, it seems like it's been a long time, but it's really only been 18 months out of a 10-year approved sales tax program. Remind everyone that our website, our dashboard for this is right on the school district website, okaloosaschools.com, and as we get more and more into it and Jacobs Titan works, it's getting better and better and more informative. So the updates come on that site monthly, because that's when the billing occurs for the different projects. But you've got access to dashboard reports and projects, and Mr. Chambers yesterday encouraged the schools and the parents who are here to go to this site, click on your school, and take a look at the projects that are there. You've got a list on the left-hand side of whom I consider great community stalwarts, and the 9 folks who are on this Citizens Advisory Committee really are insightful, and I look forward to working with them going forward. And so they have indicated to me, the ones that I've spoken to, that they would be very pleased to be able to serve on that committee one more year or another year. And I would say we bring that back to the board at such time at the first of the year for the membership. Their input to me in those meetings is we feel like we're just getting our feet wet. Again, they're a year and a half into a 10-year project, and they really have some investment in this now, and they want to see where the district's going with new school construction and those sorts of things. So very excited about that. All right, moving along. This is a sales tax revenue summary. just reporting to the board and the public that the sales tax revenue remains strong. If you look at calendar year 2021, the blue and the green, the 20.417 million was our original revenue estimates. And remember, there was a number out there that potentially we might bring in as a district, $230 million in sales tax revenue. So you see what 2021 calendar year actually turned out to be, 30.846 million. So that's 50%, a little over 50% higher than what was originally budgeted, which is fantastic. 2022 is 8 months. So again, you see the original projections versus the actual collections. And we're in for another good year from a revenue collection standpoint. And I will remind that we have a lot of tourists that come into our area, and a lot of this sales tax is paid through tourist dollars. People sometimes stop and ask, well, what about my groceries? Well, your food's not taxable, and so it's not part of this sales tax piece. So really pleased that we've got such great community. We were open all through the pandemic, and so the sales tax revenues reflect that. So the total, 53.14 million actually collected versus 34.792 million originally budgeted, means there's a lot of extra dollars. And we've talked before about how costs have gone up, but I do believe and can report to you that I think we're in a good place on our pathway to getting all of our projects done, getting them all done in time, and then potentially be able to even expand some of the things that we need to do. This is the capital outlay, the 1.5 mil and capital outlay and debt service. So this is what comes through Tallahassee by way of our property taxes, right? And so I wanted to share with you over the last 3 years. Now these numbers come from our finance website, and throughout the year you'll get adjustments to some of this funding, right? So this is just what's on our website is the original piece back at the beginning of that particular school year. And I'm not giving it to you just for the purpose of saying that is the exact number that we ended up the year with. You can call Julie for that, but it is gives everyone a reference of what's happening to our capital outlay and debt service money. So I think as a school district right now, we're blessed and have a tremendous responsibility and opportunity to do great things in our schools.
Mr. Horton,
Yes,
you've
sir.
said debt services a couple of times. Just, can you explain debt services for?
Yes, sir. So there's a categorical that comes to the school district called capital outlay and debt service. It doesn't mean we're borrowing that money, but the money comes from the state, and it's approximately $1 million a year, and it's designed to be used for roofing projects. And I will let Julie step up and give any more information she needs to about that, if she feels like in layman's terms. So that's not money that we, the district, are responsible for paying back. It's the name of the category
Correct.
that they give it to us in. And so what we do is we take that, and $1 million, unfortunately, is rarely enough to complete one roofing job, but we can combine it with our capital outlay money and get roofing work done, right?
So
Okay.
those amounts, though, are they variable?
So
The
these are,
capital outlay, the CO and the DS, how are those configured?
they're configured based on the assessed value of property in our
Okay.
county.
So those
and
fluctuate.
And the revenues collected, so that fluctuates. So we've been in a period in the last few years where property values have gone up as we've tried to buy and sell houses. And so that impacts the evaluation, that impacts the revenue that's collected, and then it impacts the capital budget that comes back to us.
And that money cannot be used on the new construction and all that, right? That's separate?
This money can be used
Oh, it
for
can be.
construction.
Okay,
It's capital
gotcha.
money,
Capital
and there are no
money.
real restrictions on it other than it has to be used in capital-defined ways.
But you did say the debt service was for roofs.
Debt service comes to us, and it's earmarked for roofing.
Mhm.
And as a district, we know that amounts about $1 million. We know we're going to have far more than $1 million of
Yeah.
roofing every year.
So we pull it out of
we
the-
put it for there. But everything else is able to be used on anything that's defined as capital projects.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right. Then just breaking it down, I thought this was a kind of an interesting way to look at this. So here's a capital improvement kind of snapshot on roofing for our 2022, kind of to where we are going to the end of this year. So then is prior to this time frame, we had temporary repairs in a lot of cases. We might be able to squeeze out one roof project per year. And I remember 4 or 5 years ago, kind of sitting around the table and saying, okay, we've got this much in funding, what roof can we do? Well, this roof's $2 million more than what we have, so then even though that might be the one that's the most needed, we're gonna go and work on this one instead. So that piece of it now, that discussion has changed. So now, we're able to spend money, and we've got the amount of money to fix any one roof that we need to, and in many cases more. So again, the board approved, and let me back up. So we've spent close to $8 million on numerous roof replacements already. Crestview comes to mind, Pryor, Mary Esther in previous years. So the board has already approved pre-GMP work at the end of this summer for a number of other roofs. So we have money sitting aside, ready to go. $10 million is effectively budgeted for roof projects. So when Jacobs Titan brings us back those GMP numbers, we'll bring them right back to the board and get going. The weather in Central Florida tends to attract roofers, and so it makes supply here more challenging. Jacobs Titan has done a good job of trying to keep our roofers working and busy on projects, and so we're hopeful to get the number of projects again done this year and into the summer, another handful.
Now, roofing is one of those kinds of things that in some ways you never really complete it, right? Because of so many facilities, there's always a roof that needs something, even though we have a lot of money. So it seems to be a topic that comes up a lot because of just the nature of what it is, along with HVAC situations. You know, this, we may get these okay, then this one's out, then, so it's that, but,
Yep.
so that's continuing using those funds to do it, but at least we're not having to draw straws on which school gets it. We have the funding to do those that really need it.
And we have the funding to do as much as our contractors can do too. So if we tried to earmark $15 million for HVAC, they couldn't get it all done in a year. They'd say,
Right.
let's take smaller bites of it. Let's do $6 million this year, then come back the next year and do the projects. Because they are long-term projects to get some of these things done that are major systems.
But in the past, it was, we didn't have the money. Now the money's there, it's just getting the labor to get it.
That's what they tell me.
To get
So
it.
when
to
I
get
got
it
here, the
done.
money started showing up. I'm not sure what.
Uh-huh, yeah.
I don't-
Yeah.
But so that's kind of a snapshot of roofing, and you got a picture there of Choctawhatchee Fieldhouse roofing that was complete. I went out and visited Coach Beasley. It's really beautiful looking, the roof. They've done a great job with it, and so that is something that I know for the next 25 years, long after I'm retired and gone, that people won't be complaining about that roof leaking like they were a year ago.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do in multiple places. Safety, so we've implemented physical hardening best practices from the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commissions. So then would be a timeline for completing single point of entry, and perimeter fencing was extensive, and some of you were board members then and remember having to make real choices about what to do when. Now, all single point of entry and perimeter fencing projects have completed up to date, 3 years ahead of schedule by my estimation. So I think we're in a very good place there. Next, and again, I'm kind of not mentioning today the camera work, the communication work, all that piece that's already going on in the layers of security, but next is access control to interior doors, right? And so the board approved, I think it was a time and materials task order, and we are currently site mapping all of our school locations and all of our doors so that we can move into the next phase inside of the building, which is secure access. Now, that's not to say all of our doors are not locked, but we want to move from keys and losing keys and then having to relock something to access cards. So now, if I'm a teacher at a school and I've lost my badge, they go in and they deprogram that badge, and that's it. It's no longer any good. So that work is going on, and as I mentioned, the sales tax revenue that's coming in that is significantly above our projections, there's a potential that we could do some purchasing this summer of the hardware for the internal access control, and then potentially do the install the following summer, or try to work it all out where it can be done now. But it's a big job, and it's a summertime job because they're going to take teams and bring them through the schools and change out everything in terms of door hardware. So there's a lot involved with that.
So, Mr. Horton, under the section where it says now, 3 years ahead of schedule. So, of course, this board, superintendent, everybody, safety is a priority. But there was a timeline that was issued by the state. Is this correct? On getting the schools?
So
up to-
the best practices for Marjorie Stoneman Douglas are not statutorily required. But they came out and were given out to school districts. I think this board, with former Sheriff Ashley being on that commission, got in on the front end of that and started doing the work needed to get these schools hardened. You may go across the state and you may find places where you don't have the same kind of single point of entry look that we do in Okaloosa County, but it's just been an emphasis on the part of the board to make that happen here. But we would still be doing those projects, and we'd be doing them again next year, I think, if we hadn't had the sales tax revenue to help us. Yes, sir. HVAC air quality. Well, I've got a picture of Choctachi's gym there again, or of Fieldhouse again. I hope they have cold air there, but I think I left it there on accidentally. But again, so I've mentioned this before, but we're now investing millions each year into HVAC repair and identifying systems in schools that need to be worked on. So there are several out there now. As the weather turns cooler and air conditioning becomes less of a priority, nonetheless, we're still working through to get those systems replaced so that they'll be good to go when the weather warms up again. And in December, it could be 80 around here, you know that.
That is true.
Technology, we kind of sometimes gloss over that, but there's some significant things that this board and Mr. Chambers have pushed and allowed to happen based on the capital plan. So I think the then piece is network infrastructure and device upgrades were needed. Now, there are some really good things that are going on that the superintendent's board has authorized. The bottom bullet there is the 1-to-1 student-to-device ratio in K-5 has been implemented. The other thing that's behind the scenes is there's $4 million worth of network switches, routers, and wireless access points that are getting ready to go into our schools. And that's, like I said, behind the scenes, but significant, because we're trying to eliminate delays, gaps, or anything for students as we use technology. And those sometimes can be the bottlenecks. If too many devices are trying to get to one access point, things kind of get jammed up. Same thing with switches and routers. But that's not the only piece. So next, from a technology standpoint, we have wiring in our buildings that we want to replace with fiber optic cable, because that's kind of the last mile in our school system about having a ultra fast, ultra good system. So we're starting to work on right now that piece of it. And again, school project lists had technology upgrades in them, so we're leveraging that funding to help get these things up to be the best in the state in terms of technology infrastructure. Getting there. Capital improvement, transportation, transforming the oldest bus fleet in Florida in 3 short years. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Then, oldest bus fleet in Florida. I think there was a former board member that took pride in going out and finding that out and averaging out the buses, and so we were. Now, we've spent $10 million approximately to acquire 75 new school buses. And I asked somebody the other day, what do they think a school bus cost?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I asked the students at the Educate the Educator, and they were all over the board with it. The answer is about $125,000, $130,000, and of course those costs are going up as well. But so you can get a really, really nice Tesla, or you could buy a new school bus. So, but next is
Bus seats more.
right. Continued systematic refresh of the bus fleet, so planning for 15 a year. That'll give us really all we need, and our buses might be in the 10 to 11-year-old range, and then we would, kind of one of those things we continue to do. And I do want to give an update to the board on funding for school buses, and I think we've mentioned this before. There was a change this budget cycle, and school buses at one time were not cleared to be purchased through sales tax funds, and even though we put it on our referendum, they were not cleared, and another district was audited and had to pay back some money. We now have received the okay that school bus purchases are approved for sales tax funds. So
changing it.
that's a good thing,
Yeah.
and we've been using our regular capital budget to buy school buses because of the flexibility that we have. That doesn't mean we're going to transition back to using sales tax dollars for that, so just an informational thing.
So each year, now that we've gotten to this point, what is our plan for transitioning old buses? How many buses are we looking at a year?
So 15 new ones a year. So you'd like to think, well, if we're getting 15 new a year, we're going to surplus 15 old ones a year and work through the system. I think there's an agenda item for this board meeting where we're donating some surplus buses to our charter schools. And Remember, a handful of years ago, we were donated ourselves several from Escambia County, dozens from Escambia County. So we'll purchase 15 a year. I think we're going to have to be very diligent with our desire, with surplusing buses, because as we look at the central facility and where we're going with bringing everyone together, it wouldn't make sense to have 40 extra buses around that we don't actually need.
Right.
Right? So 15 new a year is what we'd be committing to in the current capital environment, which I think using 160 or 180 buses is going to be about 12 years. So by the time we get there, our oldest buses might be in the 2017, 18.
Well, and my question, and I saw the 15-year, my question was going to be, how long will it take us to get them? And you just answered that. So to get us all,
about,
yeah.
So our oldest
Six.
bus now is how old? What year was it?
Oh, we still have buses in the single digits,
Yeah.
like 2004s and things like that. We still have some. And sometimes those are used as spares.
Yeah, but when
um,
we started, we had some 90-something.
We did, and I'm not gonna, I should know, but I don't know the oldest bus. And we're still working, again, with 75 in 3 years is significant. We do still have some buses that are not air conditioned.
Right.
So, to buy 80 buses in 1 year doesn't make sense planning wise, because then you're gonna have all the associated maintenance issues and the new purchase
Right.
issues down the road at the same time. So we're working through it, and I think that we do a good job of where kids have longer rides and buses are more crowded. I think we specifically look at putting buses that have air conditioning in certain places so that we know that's a more difficult ride. And our ESC buses have air conditioning on them as well for our students.
So you just mentioned about, buses being full, and of course, it's no secret out there that there's a bus driver shortage throughout the country, and including Okaloosa County. The buses that we have out there, are those the standard size buses? Are there bigger buses to where we could look at, and I mean, it's
Like a double?
well, not necessarily a double decker, but.
I was more thinking the UPS with a double trailer.
No, what I was looking at is there a larger capacity bus? Because, I
These
mean.
are more, I think.
yeah.
So these are, I believe, 77 passenger buses, which I don't believe there's anything larger than that.
Okay.
But so certainly, that's a good point, because
Right.
if you're going to have one bus driver, you want to be able to transfer as many as you can safely.
Right.
But I think we've got kind of what the limit is in terms of
Okay.
capacity, but I'll double check on that. Yep.
And I'm sorry if I missed it, what is our total fleet of buses?
So we have over 200 buses,
Okay.
but Jay tells me,
Right.
again, how many buses we use in a given day, right now might be 155.
Yeah.
But because we don't have enough drivers, we're doubling up routes in places.
Right.
So if we had 20 more drivers, we use 175 buses.
That's what we.
So that's kind of, it's a double-edged sword there with respect to that. Okay, all right. Capital improvements, new construction. So we're planning the first new school since 2007 to address capacity issues in Crestview, Destin, Niceville. So that's not one of our schools there, but it looks like a pretty crowded school. So most of our schools in Crestview, Niceville, and Destin are effectively at capacity. And now I say effectively because when you look at a high school and a teacher teaches 5 periods a day or 6 periods a day, then there's 1 period where their classroom's empty. So in a pinch, you could probably move some people around and have classes covered, but effectively at capacity. Now, we're in the process of looking at land and acquiring land in Crestview for K-8, school construction. We've had conversations about what that school would look like. The land that we're looking at, that we believe we're close to bringing to the board to acquire, is significant enough that it could hold 2 school sites on it, which I think is big for long-term planning. We're also looking at the 4-5 center in Destin on the school district property, and I actually will show you a little kind of a mock-up drawing there. We had great conversation yesterday with some of the parents from Destin Elementary, and talking about why particular project lists for sales tax weren't as high as other schools. And the answer to that was, at a time of discussion and decision, we could have tried to build 1 wing on Destin Elementary and 1 wing on Destin Middle and all the associated infrastructure costs with that, and maybe enlarging a cafeteria over here. And so when you get to that point, you have to do those cost benefit decisions and decide, let's do something at one school, and then the other school is automatically freed up in terms of capacity. So the 4-5 center at Destin Elementary would return that school to an elementary school. And I had one of the parents, as she was leaving, said, yeah, I don't want my kindergartner on my fifth grader on a bus with an eighth grader. And those sorts of conversations that happen. And then Niceville K-8, so we do have property in Niceville already. We continue to look and see if it's the best location for a potential school, but we're beginning those conversations as well. And I think, for me, and we've put out the process for doing work in the next phase there, the planning and design work. So we are hopeful to be asking Jacobs-Titan to do some pre-GMP work, that's designing and planning work, spring of 2023. Okay, and that may take a year's worth of time, but in order to do that, we need funding to do that. And so if I could just take just a minute and update the board on the COP process and the borrowing that we did to fund the construction of the 19 projects, including Silver Sands and Fort Walton Beach multipurpose. The school district borrowed funds to start that process, and that process for those 19 construction projects will be done in 3 years, right? So there was a provision in that GMP, if you recall, that would allow Jacobs-Titan to deobligate funding that they did not need after they completed all of their bid process. Normally, our total program management partner works with us on a shared savings plan. So whatever the GMP is, if the actual cost of the projects comes in under, then you take that difference essentially and you split it up in accordance with the contract on shared savings. So in this particular piece, it was a very high profile piece, Jacobs-Titan said the first $10 million of what might be shared savings is coming straight back to the school district in a deobligation format. So I think the superintendent and I are getting ready to meet with Jacobs-Titan, and I believe that they're going to release obligation of those funds, right? So now what that means is it doesn't mean that you take that money, because Jacobs-Titan doesn't have it now. We have it. It's in our own trustees account. But when it gets deobligated, it's no longer sitting there tied to these 19 projects because it's not needed. That $10 million then in essence becomes freed up to do what is appropriate to be done with that money, which is capital work. So we believe that we'll be able to, working with our own bond counsel and financial advisors, be able to take that deobligated money and use it to jumpstart the pre-GMP work on new school construction. So it's a great thing that Jacobs-Titan has done to help support the school district. And I will say one more thing on that you may know that a lot of the construction work on these projects is being done by Lord & Son, local contractors. And so they've really stepped up. And there have been competitive bids in almost every situation. 2 or 3 contractors, and Lord & Son has come in and wanted to do the work in the school district and bid their work appropriately. So very, very pleased and proud that they're a local contractor. That's a whole lot there. This might be, and Ms. Gardner, I'm trying to get you to orient yourself right there. This could be the location for the 4-5 center at Destin Elementary. You do see in that drawing, you see a multi-purpose building as well, because you're going to bring some students back. So there's a lot of thought going into the planning and design of this that's going to be coming up here this spring to make sure that, parents can get to their kids and pick them up and drop them off, and all those sorts of pieces. So once we get into this work, we'll be bringing in the Destin staff and principals and kind of going through that process. But I'm very excited about the possibility to do that, because Destin Elementary, Destin Middle School are both at capacity, and Destin Elementary has portables, as do other schools in the district.
Did you guys share that yesterday?
Share
When you
this.
met with parents?
This here?
Yes.
Oh, we did. We
Good.
talked this, and it was met with great interest and happiness. And so I would say it was part of the answer, Dr. White, to the question of why is Destin Elementary's sales tax project list smaller
Right.
than others?
Right.
And so that is the reason. All right. Moving on. I just was going to throw up here the operations goal as it relates to capital outlay and half-cent sales tax. So we want to be efficient, and we want to improve or create new facilities across the district. And that's our job, is to support learning in the classroom. And it hurts my heart when I get an email about a classroom not being cooled. And I hope you guys know that. And so it's my expectation of our staff that we are as attentive as we possibly can be to make sure our students and our teachers and our staff are comfortable and have a good environment to learn in.
Will this presentation be on the webpage? I mean, it's a great overview and it very nicely explains, simplifies. So will this be, like, if we want to refer this to a parent or?
It's going to go to Jan and Mary, and I'm sure Mr. Chambers might want to put it somewhere else. So, yep.
It's a nice snapshot of everything where we are at this point.
Absolutely. And you think 5 years ago, and then go back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and we've talked about it, because of the leadership of this board, you've allowed us to do all of these different projects. And we've talked about it being historic, because before we just fixed things. Dr. Kelly and her work with the construction committee and her leadership, absolutely appreciated, because there's so much that's going on. And this is going to be a benefit for our students. It's a benefit for our teachers and staff and administrators. So it's going to be exciting times going forward in terms of those 19 projects across the 15 schools, as well as others, and then getting into new school construction. And I just appreciate Mr. Horton and his group with the work that they're doing, because it's a lot.
It is. Thank you.
Great team.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. Mr. Chambers?
That is it.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Great presentation.
Okaloosa rocks.
Yeah. Well, and you're right, Mr. Chambers. I mean, we have projects going on, as Ms. Martello has affectionately said, from the beach to the barn. The barn's got work going on, and the beach has got, so much is going on in the district, and that's just great to see. So now we'll move down to section 15, and this is the board members' announcements and requests for information. And Ms. Gardner, I'll start with you today.
I'll just start with a thank you to the Tourist Development Center that we have in Okaloosa County. You keep bringing on those visitors that help us do all these wonderful projects right here. So that's very exciting. But just some shout outs. Destin Middle School, Caden Henry was selected for the 2023 Florida All-State Middle School Honor Band on the tuba. And he's going to represent Destin Middle School at the All-State Band Conference in Tampa, January. And he also, when he auditioned, he was recognized as being one of the top middle school musicians in the state of Florida. So that's pretty awesome right there. Also, I'd like to congratulate Carter Tobik, that he is the Fort Walton Beach High School Male All-Sport recipient, and then Sam Dixon, Fort Walton Beach High School Taylor Haugen, I always said it wrong, recipient. I tell you what, the Viking Winter Sports, they are really rocking it over there. The Lady Vikings, the golf team, is state bound. They placed third in regionals out of 12 teams, and now they're going to advance to state. And it looks like they're going to be able to have those games on November 13th. The storm shouldn't affect any of that. The girls cross country were first in the district. The 3A state meet, Alicia O'Grady placed 7th, and our boys team placed 4th overall. And not done, the girls golf, they were district champions. And the swim team rocked at the districts. Congratulations to Sierra Lang on winning the 100 free, and then Fisher Kelly won the 100 breaststrokes, not a swimmer, so. And the guys placed 12th in the state. So like I said, the winter sports, they have been doing awesome right there. And I'm going to try to read through these notes. I was so excited. Yesterday, I'm on the committee for the Educational Support Person of the Year. And to sit there and to listen to those individuals and what our support people do in our schools day in and day out is just remarkable. But we, applications were turned in. We sat as a committee. It was very difficult, but we narrowed down the selection. We did interviews yesterday, and as I said, just to sit there and listen to these individuals, they are passionate, dedicated individuals. They're sharing things like one person at one of the elementary schools, the students desperately need hygiene products, toothpaste, toothbrushes, deodorant, and out of our own pocket, and one of the other individuals at the school, they set up this hygiene closet. And we just heard story after story of these individuals that what they're doing, and they're doing it for these students. They're just dedicated, loyal, compassionate. I can't have enough words right there to explain all of them. But Mr. Chambers, I don't know, I'm sure Mr. Strong, I see Patrick right there, it was tough. I mean, it was, I say that every year, but boy, we had some excellent candidates, but we did narrow down to 3, and he's going to provide you with those names, and I think next week you're going to announce those right there. But to mark your calendars, the dates, I'm sure Patrick will send out. The first part of February, we'll do the breakfast to recognize those. And we had to kind of move this up quickly because the state has changed their guidelines, and I believe all this is due to the state on December the 9th. But I just can't, and there's some that I just kind of want to share with you that we sit there and we all tear up on so many situations that are out there in our schools. But and I would like to thank Mr. Patrick Strong right there. I'm sitting and listening and spending time with him. You're a strong supporter of our educational support people. We all know how important they are. It does take a team, and thank you for your support and dedication and what you do to support our educational support people. I think that's probably it. I'm sure when I finish, I will have something else, but I'll jump back in.
All
But
right.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Gardner. Ms. Avancha?
Yes, okay, thank you. First of all, the Public Schools Foundation had a very successful barbecue and bingo, had a great time, and I came so close to winning that, but didn't get the final thing, but it was great, and that allows us to spend funds particularly for in-classroom mini grants. And as a matter of fact, the foundation is going around giving those mini grants, and one of the Baker's teachers, Ms. Nunnally, got that yesterday. And that gives those teachers some funds to do things that they just fall through the cracks that are not otherwise funded. So it's a great thing. So we had big turnout. I haven't heard the numbers yet. You have numbers from that yet? Yeah, so that's a lot of mini
Bingo.
grants that we can,
That's like
yeah.
bingo.
Yeah, that's a lot of bingo, and that was a lot of fun. And on the veterans thing, unfortunately, this year, our meeting here conflicted with a lot of the veterans programs we couldn't get to. But not only for our local veterans, but we have a lot of our employees who are veterans, which is always great. And I know out at one of my schools, Florosa, who we think a lot about Eglin, but remember we have Hurlburt over there, over towards the west, and Florosa sits right there, and I know they're doing a great program. I've already done a great program this morning, and unfortunately I couldn't be there, but they have a very strong military presence there over at Florosa, so I know they did a terrific job. Well, okay, let's get to the big stuff. So, over at Baker, it's been an exciting season for the girls volleyball team, and they are now headed tomorrow down south, with the weather permitting, to play in a state championship. I've already said before, these ladies won their 20th consecutive district championship in volleyball, and so they'll be heading, got shifted a little bit. So there's a pep rally. If I can get out of here today, I might head up that pep rally, and then in the morning there's a send-off at 8 o'clock to send the ladies off downstate. And I want to say how well the community has come together. We all know that Baker community is so tight up there with funding. Thousands of dollars have poured in the last few days to help those ladies travel and pay for those expenses, which I don't know that we have to stop and think that it's great when these teams go, but there's expense involved, and almost always we're traveling from the north end. In fact, all state meets are centrally located down that way. So I'm excited. You can watch their games on Sunday. It's 1 o'clock Eastern, noon Central, and you can go onto the Florida High School and you can go on and see those if you want to do that. But I'm just really excited. In the meanwhile, the football team has started their regional playoffs, which will be tomorrow night at home. So I know the administrative staff up at Baker, they're kind of drawing straws and who's going where and when and all that, but that's a good problem to have. So I'm very proud of these students and what they're doing, and let's just hope we come back with a state champion over the weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Avancha. Dr. Kelly?
Okay, well, I have so much to announce that I think I'm going to break it up and give part of it today and part of it Monday night. But I will start with tagging on to what our superintendent said. Dr. Hudnall, the creator of the Hope Squad, that's our youth mental health and suicide prevention program from grades 4 through 12, and actually it goes to college as well. He will be here in Okaloosa County November the 16th and the 17th. We're very excited to host him here. He will be at the principals meeting, I understand, on the 16th, and he will be visiting schools, Hope Squads, starting at 7 a.m. that morning. And then the next day, November the 17th, that morning, I think up until about noon, he'll be training the guidance counselors, the mental health specialists, the social workers, and the behavior specialists here in our district. And then that evening at 6:30 at the Beachside Community Church is a community event. Anybody may attend, and we encourage everyone who's interested in youth mental health and certainly suicide prevention and postvention to come and hear him speak. It is really just amazing that he could get here as quickly as he can, because he is a top speaker around the world on these topics, and his schedule is really a crushing schedule to try to keep up with. So we're really excited to have him here. And then I wanted to just thank Julie Perry. It was one of our items today, and we'll approve it Monday night, but she worked very hard, she and her team, to revise and update that internal funds accounting manual. And Julie, when I looked at that and you went over that with us, that is just a feat that's a marvel. And I can see how that being truly a great training tool and a great refresher tool when a bookkeeper has a question, that you can refer back to that. So thank you for spending an inordinate amount of time on that. I can tell what a task that was. And just so that I won't let my colleagues down with counting the calendar days, which you all know that I do, after tomorrow's holiday, which, by the way, we do remember all of those brave young men and women who fought for the freedoms that we enjoy today, tomorrow. As the superintendent said, we're off, but we're not off without thinking of those who gave all and who gave much of their military career to support those freedoms that we have. But after tomorrow's holiday, there will be 9 days until the Thanksgiving holidays, and then 26 days after that until Christmas break. So goodness, look what we're coming up
Semester.
Moving quickly.
I know, the semester will be upon
Happy
us,
year.
and we'll be starting second semester and zooming towards summer break. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. And Dr. White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, certainly, we all appreciate so much the remarks about Veterans Day and how important it is to all of us and how grateful we all are. And just to share very quickly, in District 1, there was a veterans breakfast at Meigs Middle School and Shalimar Elementary. They had some special veterans programs. And of course, I know all of our schools are doing things like that. For Choctawhatchee, I'd just like to point out to folks to take a look at Choctawhatchee High School's newsletter. It's called The Tribe Life, and it's really good, and appreciate Ms. Heck putting that out and kind of keeping everybody up to speed on what's happening there at the school. Soccer and basketball has started, and as you probably know, the football team will be traveling to the state playoffs this weekend. They're trying to dodge some of that weather that we've all been watching and talking about, but they'll be doing that. And just a couple of more things about Choctawhatchee. The boys swim team had some members qualify for the state championships, and I'd like to congratulate Ms. Tia Mitchell, who's an ELA teacher and yearbook sponsor. And Ms. Vanchuk, you'll remember about the yearbook, for being awarded an Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation grant of $1,500 for her AP Literature classroom. And that's just an awesome thing to happen. And then Choctaw's Caleb Hollins finished in 7th place in the state cross-country championships. And having done that once a long time ago, I'll tell you something, when you see all those kids running in those races to finish 7th in the state, that's really good. And just one or two more things here. I would like to point out Choctawhatchee High School Indianettes are holding their annual fish fry Saturday from noon to 2 o'clock, and the sponsor for that, or the one that's providing the fish, will be Stubby's, and that's a pretty good deal, and we all appreciate Stubby's and the food, and in any case, Mrs. Shank would be the one to contact about maybe getting tickets for that. And then lastly, I'll just say that Pryor Middle School, they've got their monthly calendars posted on their social media pages, and I would suggest that parents and those that are interested take a look at the school's social media pages, because I think that's where you can find some of the most up-to-date, most recent information. And then finally, Pryor's Big Blue Brainiacs, their academic team, had some great wins recently, and I just want to congratulate those kids on the academic team for all the good work they're doing. But that kind of wraps it up, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Dr. White. And I'll just finish off by thanking all of our veterans out there, but especially my dad and my father-in-law, my other dad. Both of them are still rocking and rolling at their age, but I'm really inspired by both of them, and always inspired by them. But both served honorably in Vietnam, and it's just great that we have this time to be able to celebrate them. But if you get a chance to publicly thank them, this is that opportunity. So I just want to thank them for all that they do, and all of our veterans, of course. And Davidson Middle School, I guess they did notice on the calendar that we were all going to be busy today, so they did theirs yesterday. So I had the opportunity to go visit at Davidson Middle School, and they had a parent there named Ian Prescott, who was unfortunately he was paralyzed in a accident in Afghanistan, but he was there to tell a story, and what a great story. And his wife was sitting right next to me, and husbands, when they get opportunity to try to have fun with their wives in a public setting, we tend to forget that we shouldn't do that, but we do it anyway. So, but it was a really great presentation by Davidson. They did a great job. They had their chorus, their band, they really did a great job on there. So, thank you to Holly too and her team for putting together a good presentation. And Dr. Kelly, we were talking about traveling and all for football and volleyball and all that. Well, Crestview made the playoffs. I got a text Sunday morning saying, hey, we're in. So I was wondering where we were going to travel to, and we're traveling just right down the road to Niceville.
There you go.
So, we talked about this a little bit before the meeting, so I guess our little friendly wager is still on, so maybe I can get some revenge from earlier in the season. But no, seriously though, Niceville and Crestview, we wish them the best of luck. All of our football teams, all of our athletic programs, academic programs that have things going on. So with that, we'll move down to section 16, and this is the 2-minute version of public comment. And in section 17, we do have public hearing. 17.1 will be public hearing for adoption of a new job description for foreman fire safety. And with that, I'll go around the room. Mr. Strong? Oh, Mr. Strong, come on up, sir.
So I hadn't planned to say anything. Marty brought up the Education Staff Professional of the Year. So y'all know I usually get negative in my position. I usually call with complaints, and so that is a highlight of my year, interviewing those few. And I wish that we could bring the stories that they tell us about. I mean, and I don't know if it's appropriate for me to share, but the children that they touch each day, the lives of those children. You know, I'm a strong public education advocate, and I can tell you, without Okaloosa County Schools here, we wouldn't be reaching those kids the way they are. Kids that we were told a story where one child came in and asked the interviewee if she was going to get reported to Children and Families because she hadn't done something for her siblings that day.
Wash their clothes.
Wash their clothes.
Oh, my.
She actually mows lawns in our neighborhoods for change, so she can take those clothes to a laundromat to wash them. One little boy came in, and another story that was shared, he had his hair done that day, and the parent said, your hair looks so good today. And the little boy said, I took a bath in my neighbor's hose this morning because I don't have water in my house. I tell you, when you hear stuff like that and hear our employees, how they reach out to these kids, let me just urge the public, if they're listening, that your local school can take these donations and pass them on to these kids. If you're in Target and the toothpaste and toothbrushes are on clearance, or you can contact the school and say, I have $50 that maybe y'all could do something with. You can make a tremendous difference in a child's life. And I know that those folks have a program at the school that they could use that at. So thank you so much. Thank you. I think I've been doing this for 17 years in the district. It's not always perfect. We always think we're going to have it perfect, but I think we've come pretty close to it, and fun times. I look forward to February the 10th. The breakfast has been scheduled now, February the 10th, so put that on your calendar. And November the 17th, next Thursday, the superintendent will be announcing the winner and the first and second runner-up this
Awesome.
year. So look forward to that.
And can I just add, Dr. Hill, we're always helping to recruit, and we had one gentleman, he was a veteran, 30 years, I think he was in the service,
right.
and he was one of them that we were interviewing, and, you know, he had his 30 years, and he didn't stop there. Now he's working back at the schools, and what he's doing is, again, remarkable. But when we finished, I was asking about recruiting and how can we get more individuals that maybe have retired that want to do something along the line of what he's doing. So he gave us some names, and I know Mr. Strong will share those with you, that maybe we can reach out to some. We're always trying to recruit, so just.
Yeah, I don't
if we
think
have some
veterans were
resources.
really taught to reach school children in the Air Force, but he said he had tried elementary, went to middle school, and he decided elementary was his passion. So we know middle schools are challenging, but yeah, it was neat talking to him,
He gave us some
and we
great
certainly have some
information.
ideas. So
We're
I'll be
always
sharing
looking,
those.
Dr. Hill. So.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Ms. Appleberg? Dr. Hale? Ms. Lightbourne? Mr. Horton? Ms. Perry? All right, this meeting's adjourned.
Hey.
The stories we were hearing,
know.
I mean, that's why we sat there in
All right.
tears.
Take care.
Oh, my God.